Hello and welcome to Cinema Gulp today. This is John.
And this is Ben.
And today we're going to do a quick shot review of The Accountant.
Your son is a remarkable young man. It wouldn't surprise me if he has more in common with Einstein, Mozart, and Picasso than he does with us.
There's a lot of hidden truths about the state of treatment among many mental conditions that exist today, some of which come into play in the new film The Accountant, a film with a unique sense of storytelling, a very interesting lead character, and some uneven, if not murky plot details. Though the film is enjoyable and fairly original, it does falter in some of the details that could have possibly made it a complete slam dunk. One of the things it does right, for absolute certain, is the treatment of its lead character. The Accountant is Ben Affleck's best performance to date. Affleck, along with director Gavin O'Connor, have created an extremely tasteful, crafty, original, sympathetic, and all-out socially relevant character in Christian Wolff. So, John, what did you think of The Accountant?
I found this film interesting. It kind of went in a little bit different direction than what I expected. I found it to be an interesting, fun action thriller. It's not high on the action. It's not like high-octane action, but when they get into it, I found it exciting and visceral. I really enjoyed the performance by Ben Affleck and a couple of the other actors in the film. There was a couple people that I found to be miscast, but for the most part, I really enjoyed most of the casting in this film. But Ben Affleck was really the standout. He plays this character in a way that I haven't really seen him play a character before.
Ben Affleck!
So yeah, I overall, I really enjoyed the film. I feel like it had some issues later in the third act, but for the most part, it was an enjoyable ride.
Yeah, I agree with you. Gavin O'Connor is the director of the film. He also did a great movie called Warrior a few years ago, which I really liked. I liked a lot of his juxtaposition with flashbacks and some of the ways that Ben Affleck's character is sort of getting built from the beginning. He's obviously, even from the trailers, he's kind of a quiet person. You're not exactly sure what that is yet. You kind of find out through a couple different subtle hints, and then they just kind of flat out tell you, but it's not supposed to be a big reveal, I don't think, as far as what Ben Affleck's character is like. I think the movie was good. It to me, it was like jumping through hoops, getting through certain parts of it, because I knew it was going to eventually morph into something a little more entertaining, and I think that they may have dragged on a tiny bit in that first act, but that's a minor complaint, because Ben Affleck, like you said, was really good. He sold me on his character. You weren't watching Ben Affleck, you're watching this kind of weirdo mathematician who's a genius, and they gave him these great little quirks which made him kind of funny, and they put him in little funny situations which lightened the mood, instead of feeling like some kind of indie drama where he's just sitting there somber and sulky the whole movie. He did have these little things where he was trying to push out of his personality, you know, and then you find that he's trying more and more ways to become. I think the movie's a good example of how he is. It's trying to like find more and more ways to get expansive, and then at the end it kind of finds its footing, and that's kind of his character, sort of.
You mentioned, his character is kind of funny at times. I think the film actually has a nice sense of humor when the sense of humor is at play. It's a pretty serious film and a very intense film when it comes to some of the action, and the storyline isn't anything comical in any way, but there are a number of characters that do bring some light humor to the film, and it was really enjoyable. The whole theater was enjoying it. So yeah, this character that Ben Affleck's playing, we don't want to give anything away, but he has a condition that he's dealing with, and that really creates his character and who he is, and kind of defines everything about who he is on screen. It works to add that element of humor at times, his dry, monotone way of speaking, and I really liked. There have not been too many memorable Ben Affleck roles for me. I think this is one of his better performances.
Couldn't agree with you more. It was definitely one of his more memorable ones. He's developing into such a better actor from becoming a successful director, I think. But this one was way off course for him, and it was a good performance, and it was a very layered performance, I thought. I mean, this could have been one of those things where he didn't have a whole lot of dialogue, and he's just kind of, I'm a mathematician, and I'm just gonna like speak numbers and stare into the space.
Check what I write. Mathematicians. Mathematician. Casimir theorem. Yeah, I know proof of that. It was proven by Steve Smell in 5 or more D. Freeman did the tricky D. Yeah, I mean 4D.
But he did have a lot of dialogue. They didn't make him that kind of character that we're like, oh god. They gave us someone to root for, I think.
Yeah, I thought when we're introduced to him and we see that dry, monotone style, I thought he was going to be a bore through the film because Ben Affleck can be very boring at times.
Fuck it, reindeer games.
I'm not Ben Affleck.
You white, then you Ben Affleck.
In movies. Yeah. So I was kind of gritting my teeth of how this was going to turn out. But I kind of disagree with what you were saying about the intro being maybe a slow setup, or you weren't that sucked into the story yet till it got a little bit deeper in. I was kind of very interested right from the start, and I think they do a good job. I found the introduction to the world that he inhabits, this job, which we don't want to give too much away. The movie does a good job of explaining what he does, but this job that he's doing and the cover that he has, I found very interesting. I think some of what maybe wasn't interesting in the initial setup is his childhood, his upbringing, his relationship with his father. Some of that felt a little bit forced. I think they do a good job of tying up all the strings by the end of the film, but initially when we're introduced to some of that backstory, that was not as engaging as the current day story.
I was feeling the setup of a comic book origin story film. It was very, so we've just seen how he is good at math, so now we're going to go back and we're going to look at it. It did remind me a lot of like that Daredevil show where every time in season 1 he would do something, they would revert back to the flashback where him and his father did something and his father taught him something. I think this film could have been better. Not that I disliked the flashback scenes, because I didn't, but I think the film could have been better if those things were just fleshed out through the story and we just kind of figured out that, you know, he had a rough ass childhood and he had a kind of a crazy military father. And to me, flashbacks don't usually work that well.
No, like you said before, it could have been done in a more organic way, and that was just like most flashbacks, just forced in so that we as an audience can learn this information, but it never feels organic. It can often kind of kill the flow of a film.
Yeah, and I didn't dislike the scenes. The scenes were well done and well acted and things like that. And that's fine that they were in there. The movie is good with the decisions that were made. Sometimes it just feels a little excessive. Let's talk about what rounded off the cast. We had J.K. Simmons. Jeffrey Tambor has a small little meaty role in there. John Lithgow shows up in there for a little bit. Anna Kendrick, what do you think about her?
I enjoyed her because she brought some of that humor that I enjoyed in the film, but I did feel like she was one of the characters that felt miscast, like she was playing a role from a different movie, because she brought that same kind of lighthearted, spunky energy that she's brought to so many roles in the past, and it didn't exactly, it fit the character that they wrote her to play in the film, but it didn't fit in this film, in my opinion. But I didn't hate her. She's kind of just playing that role we've seen her play in too many other films, and it didn't quite work for this film.
Yeah, I thought she was good. I thought her performance was fine. I just didn't think her character needed to be written into this movie at all. There's certain things that her character, I suppose, represents, but for the most part, for a character that can be so easily dismissed when need be, it's like, okay, so what was really the point of that character? John Barenthal's in this movie, and his name is Brax in this movie. He's an awesome actor. That guy's just kind of an all-out badass. He's the Punisher right now.
I loved him in this movie. I mean, I wish actually he was in more of the movie, but the role he's playing, you know, is limited. So yeah, I've enjoyed him in a lot of roles recently. I'd like to see him get more work and work on a bigger stage.
Yeah, I agree with you. He pops up here and there throughout the film, but I love that they give him an arc, and I love that he, you know, actually does end up having a nice character. On the weaker side of acting, there is a character who's kind of the taken under the wing of J.K. Simmons' task force leader, and she's an actress named Cynthia Robertson. I'd never heard of her before, I don't believe. She was weak. She was weak, and her character was written weak.
It definitely has third act problems. I feel like even though they tie up almost everything with a nice bow, it's very convoluted, I think. A lot of the third act reveals are contrived. But I had fun getting to that point. It's not till pretty late in the film that I feel like it gets that contrived. So I was enjoying it.
I agree. It It takes some risks towards the end by maybe overdoing the twists and turns and big reveals and things like that. And you can have those when it's kind of, I felt that it was kind of happening one after the other. If you're going to have a far-fetched one, just have one far-fetched one. But I agree with you. The ending got really convoluted, and I was kind of playing catch-up with myself, especially once some of the bigger things towards the end of the second act started coming out, which we won't get into. But there's some awesome kills in this movie.
Yeah. Well, I did say I really enjoyed the action scenes. They were very visceral, in my opinion. We were going to mention that it does emulate John Wick a little bit in some of the gun battles, but in a good way. I mean, I was really enjoying it.
Basically just the shot in the head, right? I mean,
yeah, a couple times. But
Ben Affleck sells it, man. Like,
I agree.
He's been beefed up for a few years, so he actually seems like a convincing dude to do that kind of stuff.
I believed him in the few action scenes and the hand-to-hand fighting that he does. I can't think of too many movies where I've seen Ben Affleck do the hand-to-hand fighting, and it was impressive. And I mean, maybe there's a stuntman in a lot of these scenes, but it looked good for me.
I'm glad you mentioned that. The stunt work, the hand-to-hand combat scenes were awesome in this movie. They were super cool. And it's great because he's still in character, and he's not like, oh, now I'm Ben Affleck and I'm Mr. like super martial arts guy. He's still this guy with this condition who's still really weird. So when he's in the middle of these things, you almost kind of laugh sometimes, and it's very entertaining because you're watching an awesome fight scene, but you're also watching it being done by some guy who's not quite normal, and he stays in character during those fights.
Like I think we've said enough times in this review, Ben Affleck is really the reason to see this movie. He was very enjoyable in this role, and the action scenes are pretty exciting.
And I don't know how many times I've been able to say that, unless it was his directing, where I can say Ben Affleck is the reason to go see this movie because his performance is good. So I'm going to go ahead and score this one on our audience checkability meter. I think that The Accountant is going to entertain people the way it entertained us. It's not a perfect film by any stretch of the imagination. It's got its problems. Most of them are within the writing. But I think that this movie is right in between Thirst Quencher and Top Shelf.
I think I agree with you on that.
A little better than Thirst Quencher, not really deserving to be right in that top shelf.
Yeah, I agree with you. I wouldn't put it into the top shelf. I would say this is right on the line, or just there on same spot that you're saying, right there on Thirst Quencher.
Okay, and on the gulp gauge, I'm gonna have to give this one 6 gulps.
I'm gonna give it 5 gulps.
Okay, everybody, hope you enjoyed our review. Go out and see the movie Good Will Hunting 2 Hunting Season.
Jackie,
Yeah?
it's hunting season.
Applesauce, bitch.
At a theater near you.
We hope you enjoyed the review.
And as always, everybody, if you like this review, leave a comment in the comment section below. Comments, goddammit.
And tell your friends we need more subscribers.
Or we're going to have to shut down operations.
We need to beat these teenagers that seem to have 1,000 views in 24 hours. So.
We're going to be forced to recruit the guy with zits on his face that stands in his bedroom with his dick in his hand and does his reviews, who's got 8,000 subscribers.
All right, thanks for listening. This has been John.
This has Ben.
We drink your cinema.
I drink it up! Tracers of thin stitches, I make wishes. I get the answer right, and I'll be staying up all night just to check what I write. Mathematicians.
The Pythagorean theory.
Mathematicians.
Finds out fun news for me.
Mathematicians.
Or I'll use trigonometry.
I'm mathematicians. Decimal.
Locus at the points.